Okay, this is going to work. Here we go. Good morning, everybody. My name is Dave Finale, and this is Real Estate Talk TGIF, and this is episode 288. 285 weeks in a row. I'm really excited today. I mean, I have great guests on every week, but Brian, you're just fun to talk to and fun to hang out with, because it's just like your passion for life, your passion for everything that we talk about, everything we do. I remember we were in a competition last year at this time, I think, and we had fun with that too, and it's just a lot of fun. But we're going to talk about some really serious stuff today. We're going to first find out where you came from, but we're also going to find out about, we're going to talk about prospecting. We're going to talk about how to schedule that stuff. And Brian, thanks so much for being here. Can't wait to get started.
Likewise. Always love the conversation, Dave. Always.
Awesome, man. And let's go to the videotape to get this started. Go ahead, Nelson. Real estate agents, are you looking to acquire clients consistently to grow your business and income for a great lifestyle? Well, this is Dave Finale, and I'm here to bring you the Real Estate Skill Builder broadcast, Real Estate Talk TGIF, brought to you by Real Estate Skill Builder and the Modern Agent team. Good morning and welcome back. Again, Dave Finale here, Real Estate Talk TGIF, episode 288. And this is brought to you by myself, which is Real Estate Skill Builder. Why that name? Because after I sold my brokerage 6 years ago, I wanted to help people build their skills. So whatever I do, however I do it, whether it's coaching, whether it's mentoring, whether it's just through my video and my social media content, I hope I have the opportunity to help you build skills as we move along. The other thing that's most important about this broadcast, that it really truly is brought to you by NJHeroesProgram.com, which is a program to support and aid heroes to buy and sell homes where we help them out and save money. So anyway, here we are. We have the Brian Danney. Brian is a sales coach. He is also one of the founding members of the Beer Home Team, one of the top real estate teams in the country and in California. So Brian, thanks so much for coming on today. I hope everything's going well for you out in California, and the weather is, well, it's about 35 here. So probably a couple of degrees warmer for you.
Yeah, we're spoiled here. It's nice, and when there's a cloud in the sky, we don't know what to do. So we're good. We're good. And I was telling you, I just came off a quick trip with the family at Disney. So I am recovered, or soon will be, and excited to be in the grind and here with you today. So
I spoke with someone last week, and they were cold because it was 60 degrees in your area one day last week. So I did not feel sorry for them. But as we get started, let's get on to real estate, because the whole idea behind this is to give as much information and help to agents that may be watching this, any industry in sales. But first, the question is, it's called Real Estate Talk TGIF. What does TGIF stand for?
Oh, come on. I know this one. It's thank goodness it's Finale. I know. Yes.
There you go. There you go. Awesomeness. Awesome. So yeah. So you are, it's like 5 and 100. Get it? Yeah. So you've been on the show before, so you do remember. So anyway, let's get right into it, man. As we end the year, this is being broadcast, by the way, everybody, on December 15th, 2023. So everybody's getting ready for the holidays, and we're hopefully, over the last couple of months have started to build a plan as to what we want to do next year, right? So business planning is extremely important, and it doesn't have to be a complicated thing. But one of the things it does have to do is you have to look back to see if there's things you didn't like or things that didn't happen the way you wanted them to happen, and how do you make that change? And one of the things that I look at is, yes, you have to set up the steps to do it, the action steps to get there. But the other thing is, I think really most importantly for me, is I want to talk about how you schedule those steps, how you schedule that calendar. I tell people that they should even be scheduling their shower, which is, I know that you do. So talk to me about the schedule. Talk to me about how important it is, what you do, how you devise it, and how it has changed and evolved over the years.
Yeah. Something worth noting is I'm constantly changing my calendar based on the trends that I'm seeing or new things that develop. Like I just made some small tweaks to my calendar, but bottom line is I like to start my day with morning routines and end my day with evening routines. That is the bookends of my day and are the most important, because that's the stuff that I know I can do if I'm consistently doing it, it's giving me momentum and giving me the cadence that I need to start my day. It also is giving me a mind check where I'm actually checking things off on my calendar. So anything from telling my kids and saying good morning to my kids, to showering, to brushing my teeth, to getting in the office, to doing my birthday videos. And then in the evening, I like to review and give myself an opportunity to really wind down and give myself personal time. And I like to reward myself with personal time, because the whole goal is to then rinse and repeat. And then the other thing I like to do in the end of my day is make sure that I'm actually reviewing what I'm going to see tomorrow. Just like a professional athlete. Like, I want to go in looking at my playbook, looking at my conversations. Now, the one thing I'll tell you about my morning is, and I'm pivoting. So I believe that I need to have my non-negotiables. And my non-negotiables need to make my calendar, and we all need to identify what our non-negotiables are. I know mine is prospecting. I know it's follow-up. I know it's trading, and I know it's video. And as long as I do those 4 things and I track it, I'm good. If my afternoon's open, by all means, I'll go back to Disneyland for an afternoon. I really don't want to, but you get the point. I will do what I need to do to make sure that I'm enjoying my day if I have appointments or don't have appointments, but I need to conquer my non-negotiables. And that's what we need to figure out is, how do I find my non-negotiables? Go audit your calendar. Go audit the things that allowed you to win in a quarter, and then make sure those are in your calendar. So I now have 2 hours where I am crushing. In fact, we're going to have this in our team. We're going to crush our calendar for 2 hours, and anything thereafter is appointments or personal time.
So will you stop if you obtain an objective? Like, for instance, I've spoken with another coach over the years, and he said once he got his qualified appointment, he took the rest of the day off.
Once it got us qualified, well, no, because I'm actually running something called a daily sprint, which I'm happy to show you. My sprint, I'll just lay it out there for you. This is what I focus on. So I have my components of how I want to win, but what I know is I need a minimum of 10 conversations. 10 conversations a day, new conversations, prospecting. How do I define that? The people that don't know who the heck Brian is, that's how I define it. How I'm also defining it as, and these are my minimum amount, right? Like, I want 10 new conversations. It's not someone that says, hey, Brian, F off, hang up. No, it's someone who's engaging me in a conversation. Someone that has allowed me to at least explore more about them or their pain, so I can then get to some value, which I'll get into probably later today in our conversation, why I love this formula that I use. And then the other thing I need to do is my follow-up. I need to have 8 follow-up calls. I need to make sure that I send a minimum of 5 text messages to people that I'm following up with. Minimum of 5 video. And these are the things that allow me to run. Now, here's the thing that I've now added. I make sure that I include 5 emails. And most importantly, if I can ask for 1 review or 1 testimonial or 1 referral, one of any of those 3 in 1 day, and I do that for 5 days, can you imagine what my year is going to look like with all my reviews that I can repurpose and a referral that I get that I can now have? So I like chunking it down. Before, I used to live in this overwhelming world where I'm going to do these 4 things, but holy smokes, I got 200 that I have to track on a sheet, and I am over that game, and we all should be, because that's an overwhelming number. 200, 10, 8, 5, 5, what? Like, it's way easier. Let's give ourselves some wins. So that's how I move through my day. That's how I find my metric to figure out if I get my 1, I'm over. No, it's actually a minimum of 10. And that's where I start from.
So one thing really important I want to point out, this broadcast usually goes live at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Yeah. Today, we air just a little bit before 10 a.m. Eastern time. That is because you're out in California. 8 a.m. Pacific is 11 a.m. Eastern, and that is the time you start with your non-negotiables.
Yes.
We did this. You actually were on more than a year ago. It was episode 222, and you were on, and we did the same thing, right? So it's really important to understand this. And then when you start talking to your schedule, like you started to tweak your schedule, and I said business plan earlier. One of the things that I did this year in planning my business for next year is what was I lacking? What was I not getting the traction on that I really should have? And I know in the back of my mind, it's something that I really need to do. And for me, that was, I mean, look, I'm on social all the time, but I really wasn't perpetrating my stories the way I should. And that really gets you a lot more response and more activity than just regular posting. So that's one thing I have to do every day. So now it's on my schedule. I mean, I have my ritual. I mean, I know you're up early. I'm up at 4:15. I'm at the gym at 5. I'm on the road by 6:45 to wherever I'm going to be working. So it's really important for you to have that set schedule and the things you have to get done during the day. The other thing I do, which is really important, is before I get started in the day, I'm writing down several things that I need to get done that day, aside from my prospecting, right? So it's really important for you to look at it. And you've got the non-negotiables. A lot of people say, you said 200 calls, right? A lot of people look at that number and it's like, so, I mean, it's, I'm going to use the word devastating because, you know, I mean, okay, so I'll give you a quick story. So I had an agent, started working with me. He's doing really well now these days. 10 years ago, he said, Dave, I'm going to do 200 calls a day. First day he comes in, he does the 200 calls. Took him all day, right? The next day he did 180. The next day he did 110. So what happens is your excitement through the first day and then the monotony and the just the unsuccessfulness that he had just turned him off. And it's to me, it's a recipe for failure. Mm-hmm. Taking it in pieces like you take it, I mean, I don't think there's a way to lose. And, you know, truth be told, Brian, I mean, is it true you did 21 million in July?
I did 21 million in July. Yes.
How did you do that? Because I got to talk about that a little bit. So tell us what you did to do that.
Yeah. I obsess over a process, and I knew let me give you a little backstory real quick, and then I'll jump right into how I did that. But I recently, in the beginning of COVID, got into mountaineering. Okay. I climbed glacier mountains. I don't know why the hell I do it. Somehow it's a love and hate relationship. I climb these glacier mountains. I just came back 3 weeks ago from Bolivia, and something that I learned on this trip was much different. We have to leave to go climb a mountain in the middle of the night in pitch dark. Dave, do you have any idea why someone would want to go climb a mountain in pitch dark? Or why the guys?
No, but I did watch your story and I did hear a little bit about this. So I'm not surprised what you're saying because I've heard this from you and the other stories I heard on that trip. So go ahead.
Yeah. So the guides want you to leave at 12 a.m. or 1 in the morning because if things go south, you're coming down the mountain with visibility in the daylight. Okay, if things go south. Also, they want you to climb up a mountain when you have better terrain. When obviously it's colder out when the sun isn't out, right? So when you start in the dark, you have an easier way to climb that mountain. What I learned this trip is because I leave at 12, because I leave at 1, and because the only way I can see around me is because I get a headlamp and I can only see 15 steps in front of me. I am not overwhelmed by looking at the crevasse over here, by looking at whatever small snow bridge over here. I'm not looking and overwhelmed at the mountain at the top. Like, how the hell am I going to get there? I'm not consumed with that. So what I have taken back and what I realize and what I've been doing and how I always work is if I can just focus on 15 steps, great. Because I'm going to get another 15 steps after that. And then another 15 steps after that. And then another 15 steps after that. Right. And that is my headlamp. So imagine if you had a headlamp. That is exactly how I did 21 million in a month. It's because I obsessed over one lead source. I went all in. I had a 2-week process. And I repeated it twice. And I didn't say, give me this lead and this lead and this lead and that lead. And I didn't do that. I just focused on a process. And I stayed consistent with it. And I went all in. And that was open house.
Open house was your lead source?
Lead source. 21 million.
So
and I'm closing next week on one of those sellers that I met. So
I want to talk a little bit about, you know, the distractions, because that also really works well in with what we talked about with schedule and we talk about with calendar, right? So, and just to support exactly what you said, last time I think you were there at the Tahoe event. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you were. And we climbed and hiked Mount Tamalpais. Yeah. For me, it was a new experience for me, and did real well. I was very pleased with how I did, but the distraction of the overall beauty of what we could see, the lake and Lake Tahoe, and then looking up and say, okay, I'll be there in 10 minutes, 20 minutes, right? I kept saying to myself, 20 minutes, 20 minutes. Little did I know that it was going to be 7.5 hours round trip, right? And we stayed up top for about a half hour. So, you know, I mean, the distractions are there. And this is the same thing with your calendar. I mean, there might be beauty, you know, somebody walking by your building. If you're in the front of the building, there might be a lot of different distractions. Always. The hard part is to get away from those distractions and not allow them to happen. Concentration, discipline. I mean, how do you get through that, Brian? How do you explain it, and how do you get it through somebody's head that the discipline to your principles is important?
Because I know if it's going to take me much longer and if I'm not all in and I'm not focused, that I'm going to eventually take away time from my family. And we all have reasons why we're doing this, right? We all have personal things we want, or vacation or gym time or whatever that is. It's going to take me away from something else. Second is, I know that is the number one cause, the number one thing that happens if I just use too much energy getting pulled in and out of staying focused. That's what leads to burnout. Period. Your energy going here, it's bouncing back and forth. It's like a tennis ball. That is where burnout develops, is because you don't go all in and you live in distraction. And the amount of energy that, if you really audited your day, that someone taps you on the shoulder, says, "You got a second? I have a question for you," and you get pulled out of something you're doing and you're going to do that. Do you know the amount of energy that's taken to actually get back and refocus to where you were, meeting yourself where you're at in thought? It's exhausting. That's burnout. That is why I minimize distraction. One thing I'll tell you is give yourself a win. Like, so often we're going to prospect, but yet we're on our computer and we have our cell phone open. We have our email open. We have social media open. Like, what if we just hit the X button and the only thing we had in front of us was the thing we're supposed to do, which is our CRM. And that's what we're dialing through because that's where we're prospecting. What if that was the world we lived in? So give yourself wins. Don't give yourself disadvantages. And that's a weakness we all have. I still struggle with. So I'm not telling you I'm perfect, but we have to be aware of it. And if we're aware of it, then we can be more conscious and we can make the right decisions that will allow us to propel.
So that's give yourself a win and allow yourself to go. What about people? Let's talk about this, right? So I've been very successful over the past week and a half, changing my schedule and doing things and having, you know, set things I want to get done during a day aside from prospecting. Sometimes what happens to me, and I know this happens to a lot of people, is you get really successful in getting those few things done. And then you start, if you're nuts like I am, you start thinking, I can do more. Yeah. I'm not getting enough done. What is it? I got time to myself in the afternoon. What the hell is that worth? What's going on there? And then we start putting more things on that list, leading to frustration of not completing the list. Have you seen that? How do you get around that? Is it just discipline to not kill yourself with that list?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the thing I believe in is you got to find consistency. So if you're continuing to do something for 2-3 weeks, now you got a month under your belt, great, then add more. But when you try to add more when you're building your new identity, when you're building your new routines, you're building your new non-negotiables, you're trying to find consistency and you're adding more, that's a dangerous game to play. Because ultimately what's going to happen is you're going to drop the ball somewhere and you develop really bad habits, not if it happens once, but if it happens twice in a row. So that's why finding consistency first doing it, maybe it's prospecting for 10 minutes a day for 5 days a week. Great. Do 10 minutes a day. Do that for a month, and then jump to 15, and then add. Now, other things that you have on your plate that you need to that you need to take care of. Yes, but you got to weigh non-negotiables. What am I adding? As long as you hit your non-negotiables, then you'll have time for those other things that you might add. But sometimes we get confused. What is non-negotiable and what is not? And the non-negotiables to me are the things that the things that actually impact my mood. Did I have a good day? Did I not have a good day? Did I feel accomplished? Those are the things I'm weighing when I'm deciding what a non-negotiable is. What's the thing that's going to move my business? Where have I had success? Where haven't I had success? That actually puts it in another category, right? Something that I obsess over, but I have never had success. I'm continuing to do it over and over and over again. I'm not saying not to train on that and get better, but that should not be a non-negotiable. Maybe the training's a non-negotiable, right?
Yeah.
Not the activity.
Yeah. Yeah. When you said there are 4 things, it was prospecting, follow-up, training, and video. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it the training that you're doing or the training that you're getting?
Ooh, I love that. Actually, the training that I'm doing is actually making me sharper.
Yes. Thank you.
I love the training I'm doing because it actually makes me to be on my A game. It makes me sharper. It makes me really get better and better and better. But yeah, I do training. Like John Cheplack is my coach. Like, I'm fortunate enough. I actually jump into podcasts. I jump into books. I read books, a few books I read a couple times a year. I read at least once a year. I have a few that I read. But I'm always in some sort of training. I'm always trying to, get a different lens, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe think about something differently, whether I implement it or not, but understand different perspectives because that allows me to meet people where they're at and all types of space into this industry, clients and coaching clients and other agents and relationships I have. So I'm always improving, but coaching makes me sharper. That's why I love it. I love contribution. I've always been a big believer in just
and that's, to me, that's where, when I started this, I started talking about real estate skill building. What I want to do is help people build their skills because I saw that through my career that, people were just like, throwing shit against the wall and hoping it stuck. And that's not a plan. That's not a way to do business. So we've talked a lot about time. We talked a lot about that. But by the way, I don't think there's such a thing as time management. I think we cannot manage something that doesn't stop, but we can optimize it. And that's the way I look at it. I mean, time management actually is bullshit. Optimization of time, different story, right? Which is the way I go. So we talked about prospecting. And one other thing I want to hit before we get into before we talk about actual prospecting. You talked about videos and you talked about birthday videos. Tell me about that and how effective that is to clients, to friends, to whatever.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I adopted sending birthday videos because I like pattern interruption. And most people jump on a Facebook wall, they say happy birthday. And guess who else does that? The 800 people that did it before them. So I like sending a birthday video. And what I also found is it just actually gets me sharper, gets me comfortable on camera earlier in the morning. And it's what I focus on. So I literally just jump on Facebook and anybody who has a birthday that I'm friends with, I'll just jump in and I'll send a birthday video. And I do this and I have a track that I use, but it just humanizes everything. And the relationships I've developed because of it have been, and I get videos back all the time, have been big. But it actually is the first thing I do before I actually prospect because it gets me in the right space and it makes me feel good about something I'm doing. Yeah. So people that know you do that. People that know me know I do the same thing. Yeah. And I do it every day. And if I go to like 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I haven't done it yet because something got in my way. I said, oh shit, I got to get this done. So I've been doing it probably since COVID, since then. Yeah. And it does get you going. It does get your juices flowing, and it allows me to really get excited about the day. And if I'm in a bad mood, I gotta be in a good mood when I do those because I don't want to look like a jerk. Like, hi, happy birthday, Yeah. But it's a good way to get started. And
what's great is I bet on your birthday you get so much stuff you can't even respond to it.
Yeah, I do. It's nice. It's nice, and I enjoy it because it's just a human connection, and people that I didn't get to know, I get to know better through it too. And listen, we're in a really special industry, and I do it to everyone. I do it to clients. I do it to other agents across the country. It doesn't matter who it is. And frankly, the other thing I don't stop on is if it's someone I haven't talked to in 25 years, I still send a video. Someone I went to high school with, like, why not? Like, they'll remember that.
Well, I didn't like anybody I went to high school with anyway, so I, decided. All right. So let's get into the nitty gritty of prospecting. So prospecting, Brian, a lot of people talk about, what script should I use? Who should I call? What should I do? What's the list of, should I call for sale by owners, expires, withdrawals, circle prospecting, sphere of influence? Who should I call? What should I say? How do I say it? What do I do? Lots of questions, right? I think you should just start doing something, but that's just to get started. So talk to me about how someone chooses what they're going to do, because let's face it, there's a lot of agents that are going to hit the ground running in January in a few weeks, and these poor for sale by owners and expireds are going to get bombarded in that time. How are they going to differentiate themselves?
Yeah. So first of all, the one rule is you have to be uncomfortable. You have to be familiar with being uncomfortable, because if you're comfortable when you start any call, you're not doing it right. You're just not. So I'm a big believer in something I've always done in my career. I've been in the industry approaching 20 years. I've been in residential for over a decade. And something that I've always done, no matter whether I was in commercial or I was in residential, is I never really ran with long-winded scripts. I just never did it. What I always wanted to do was figure out a way to build good rapport with someone and build trust by showcasing and highlighting and underlining through pace and cadence and everything else how I'm actively listening to someone. And I knew if I actively listened to someone and I used things where I was mirroring or I was doing keyword backtracks and I was doing all these other techniques, that's where I can actually win with people. And that's what I do. I use little small versions of scripts. I call them talk tracks, because scripts to me are 4, 5, 6 pages long, right? But what I believe is I want to be myself. I don't want to be robotic, and I want to take little questions or maybe two sentences max of a track and use that in a conversation. But then it allows me to actually pivot in a direction that I know I can if I'm really meeting somebody where they're at. So what I obsess over, and what I would encourage us to obsess over, no matter what and what process or when you're communicating, is this formula. I love learning about who that person is. Did I learn enough about who that person is? Did they give me enough so maybe I can find an opportunity to poke at some pain, a challenge, a pylon that's in the middle of the road, that I can help them figure out, not to be the hero, but to be the guide, how to figure out how to get around that pylon cone, right? Like that is the goal, is to find a way to help them see there's another way to get around that challenge. And most of us, we go, okay, I understand who this person is. Here's the value. We go right to value. No. And it is the worst thing you can do, because it's so disingenuous. And that is, to me, a 3-4 page script. We have to spend time in understanding who someone is, understanding what challenges they have. And then when you identify all of that, when I spend about 75% of my conversation with just those two things, by the time I get to value, I'm spending 5-10% of my conversation there. It's like that, because I'm so clear on what they need. But I need to spend time poking at their challenges so they can internalize. And that's by asking good questions. By the way, the fourth thing on that list, they, pain, value, that's the appointment. That's the next steps. And I spend the least amount of time there. It's all understanding who they are and what their pain is. And that's where I navigate in the conversation. So when I prospect, that's what I'm conscious of. So how do I know enough about them to ask good questions?
Good. List those steps one more time.
I want to understand who they are. By the way, you have an edge on somebody. Someone's a internet lead. You know a little bit about them. Now it's your job to confirm those assumptions, right? It's your job to say, what is their process? How do they look for homes? How active are they? Where are they looking? Right? Like, what sites are they on? They like to do their own due diligence. We know things about people. So it's our job to confirm those assumptions and dig deeper. And then we have to poke at their process, because their process is obviously they've landed them in your lap and they don't know it yet, but they need some help. They need a guide to get them to wherever it is, the top of their Everest, right? Where that's a new home up there. And it's our job to guide them there. And we just have to ask questions, not hit them with value like a used car salesman, right? We have to actually dig deeper to understand how we can solve something for them. I will not bring up a value until I really understand a few pains. And when I see them internalize and I hear by their tonality, or when I feel them leaning forward versus leaning back, that's where I know where I need to go with value. And then after the value, so they, pain, value, it's booking that appointment. That's the no-brainer choice at the end of the conversation.
Is there I look at it the same way as it, and the only way to find out, you know where they are because of what they're doing. You have to figure out their process, and the only way to understand those two things really, really well are by asking questions. I mean, we can talk about scripts all we want, and the scripts are all about questions. But you know what? I mean, when we talk about scripting, we don't talk about the rules of what we're trying to gain. If you go at your calls with emotion, and what I mean by that is to care about who you're talking to, I think you've got a much better chance of getting to the next step, then getting to value, and then getting to the appointment. What kind of are there? You said meet them where they are, right? Guide them through their journey, right? And you once said in a session I was at, you have 7 seconds to grab their attention, right? Yeah. And how do you do that? How are you grabbing their attention? I mean, you did 21 million in 1 month through open houses. How did you grab their attention there?
Yeah. One is I need to have intuition. I need to be aware of where they're at, if they're already like this close to hanging up the phone or not, or if I have to figure out where they're at. I also need to have control. I need to grab their attention right away. Okay. I need to have control. Gives me authority.
Yes.
Like I'm doing right now. It's your pace. It's everything. And I also have to have good energy. They want to talk to me. I have to portray good energy, because then that's going to make it infectious to actually continue the conversation. But you need control out of the gate, period. You just need it. So I obsess over those 3 things. If I hear that they're close to hanging up the phone, then I didn't do a good enough job on control and energy.
So how are you doing that control? How are you getting that control, Brian?
Yeah, so I catch people off guard all the time. In fact, I do things that are, again, pattern interrupts. Sometimes I use icebreakers. When I've been calling someone a new lead that comes in my world, why not? I FaceTime people. Yeah, I FaceTime people because they're not expecting it.
Wait a minute. Yes. You get a lead, or you're calling for sale.
I called them 3 days in a row. They haven't picked up. What do I have to lose? I will FaceTime them.
Holy shit.
It's weird, and they can't believe it because they think it's a pocket dial. And guess what happens? No, Brian is there, and I laugh with them, and they don't expect to see a person. So I do things out of the ordinary. But how do I get their attention? I ask them. Essentially, I say, can you help me out with something real quick? That's typically how I get into an intro, is can you help me out with something real quick? I have a cool question for you. Rather than saying, I saw you looked at the house on Sentinel Lane, and no, then I'll get there. But if I can break their barriers down by asking them a question, because that's going to catch them off guard, and asking for permission, you rarely get someone who says, no, leave me alone. And if you do, it's probably not someone you want to talk to anyways. So Dave, can you help me out with something? I have a question for you real quick. That's it.
Sure, what's up?
Yeah. So I saw that you inquired about that home on Sentinel Lane. Did you have a chance to see it?
No, I haven't seen it.
Right there, right. And that's where I'm going, but I'm asking a question. Now, something I want to point out is I envision the conversation. Imagine this road. I talked about a pylon cone, okay? And you asked me, how do you meet somebody where they're at? I really want to emphasize this because this is like, I'm so passionate about this stuff. It's so important. And this is where the agents in our industry get it wrong. And I want to at least just shed some light on different ways of thinking. So, Dave, you know LP Mama, right? You know what LP Mama is, and most agents in our world. That's a version of a talk track, by the way. But here's the difference, and it's a script. Of course, it is. Here's the difference. You have an intro. You're over here. The road's here, and your intro is over here. And if they engage you, then you get on the road. Then you're on a road driving with them. Okay, and then the first hash mark in the road is location. Okay, so they're talking about location. And they say that, yeah, we really want to be close to the school district. We really want to be close to Meadow Middle School. Okay. And then rather than meeting them where they're at, when we get that information, what do we want to go next? We go off the road. We go, so have you spoken to a lender yet? That's the issue.
Right.
If we just get the information, we'll naturally get through LP Mama on the road if we just listen and ask good questions and we're mirroring them. If you're stuck, the best thing you can say is, Meadow Middle School, and then shut up and then have them give you more information. Yeah, we want to be in walking distance to Meadow Middle School. We have a 5-year-old or whatever, an 8-year-old, and it's really important that we be close to the school. And also, we really want to be a neighborhood that has amenities, that does parks and all these. Great, you just moved up to the next notch on that road. Versus agenda-driven off to the road, taking where you want to. The whole point and the reason why I get really passionate about this is because we don't realize how much we get in the way of building rapport. And when we just pick up and learn and use the language that somebody's using in the conversation, it feels effortless and almost like we are just one. We're in cruise control versus weaving in and out of the road because that's where we want to take them. And when we get better at just listening and actually focusing in the moment, how about this? Headlamp, 15 steps, the first 15 steps, like that, it's all relative to everything that we do. 15 steps, like just don't focus on the appointment. That's the Everest, right? Focus on 15 steps on how I can learn something about that person right now and listen to the language that they're using so you can repurpose that and let them know that you guys speak the same way. Example, someone says home, use the word home. Don't use the word property. If someone says, I'm looking for a good investment, use the word investment. If someone's saying, I want big yard space, use big yard space. Don't do outdoor space, right? Like just use the same language. Easiest thing we can do.
Well, that's the whole thing. And that's where it comes in when you're asking questions and you're trying to not only figure out what they're really looking for, but you're actually trying to, when you build rapport, you're building you're building some type of relationship together where you've got some common ground. You have to make, as you're saying, you have to make the common ground. As you said, if they say investment, it's investment. If they say house, it's house. If they say property, it's property. A lot of us, I mean, you know what? We listen to the wrong shit when we get into this business. We're listening. We want to be so proper and we want to, that's bullshit. Be a human being. I mean, the best salesmen in the world don't even sound like a salesman. I mean, you mentioned used car salesman, right? You know what? Honestly, having just bought a couple of different vehicles, I know that they're not like they used to be, right? I mean, some are and some aren't. I mean, if you happen to get the right one, they're doing great work. And I was really impressed recently with a gentleman that knew what I wanted. And he called me up and says, look, I got this coming in. I know you said you wanted 1, 2, 3. And that could only have happened by listening. Right? So, I mean, there's so many different questions you can ask. You mentioned LP Mama for buyers and stuff and talk tracks. So when people want to get so hung up on scripts, there's talk tracks, right? So talk to me about scripts versus talk tracks.
Yeah, and I kind of alluded to it, but a script to me is just long-winded and it's robotic and it's taking people where you want to go because that's the next thing listed on a script. To me, a talk track is chopping it up. maybe taking highlights of it and then using that to get into a deeper conversation to build trust. The thing I love that you just said, Dave, is that the reason why you love that person, that other salesman that you spoke to, is because he was relatable. He was completely relatable. Yeah. And I have to imagine you walked away and be like, oh, I like that guy, or I like that girl, right? And that's how you want to walk. You want people to walk away from a conversation. It's saying the same exact thing. I'm not telling you to make it forced. That is where we get into sales, like use sales, old sales process. Scripts it forces a persona.
It does.
It really, really does. And I just want to be Brian, and I just want to be the way when I'm curious about something, I want to ask the same types of questions with the same types of inflections and just continue to go. Now, here's the other thing that I really want to mention too, and I believe I answered that. Scripts, long-winded, talk tracks, mini versions of that, using what you want when it makes sense in the moment. What I really want to emphasize on in this whole thing is we have to make sure that we are constantly staying curious, right? When we stay curious, it's really, really important. And the moment we take someone else and it's forced, that is when we are dropping the ball, and someone is now they're questioning whether they want to stay in the conversation or not. Okay, so we don't understand the damage that we're doing in really revolting the rapport building when we're not just staying on course, asking those questions. Mirroring is the best hack I mentioned earlier that you can do. You don't know where to go next. Mirror what they said. Mirror what they said.
Go into that a little bit more. We've talked about. I mean, we talked about in our sales conversation. We talk about mirroring and matching. We talk about pace and tone, right? So when we talk about scripts, there are a few people that I know that are able to take, let's say, a Mike Ferry script, take that whole book, and they can talk to you as if you're a prospect, and you don't even know it's a script. It's how they're talking, and they're doing it with pace and tone and mirroring and matching. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's practice, that's training, that's being comfortable in your own skin. I would focus more on the fundamentals of how can I get better at active listening and using the same language patterns that they're using. That's where I'd focus. So we're role playing. Maybe it's like throw out scripts, talk tracks, throw it all out. But if you can just enhance your listening so you can stay present, and you can actually jot down how to be better in the moment in a real life situation of really get something out of what they're giving you, that is a win in itself. And start there before you go anywhere else, right? Just be yourself, ask questions, maybe stuff unscripted, but just work on active listening and really staying present. That's where I'd focus. And then I would weave in. Now, here's something that when I'm talking about, you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Right. This is what I'm going to talk about in a moment. I think is the game changer, high level, that is going to make the difference between agents that are really, really good and build strong relationships and the ones that will always stay surface level. If someone mentions something personal, we just move past it because we're not comfortable discussing it. And I think there is BS in that, because if they were comfortable enough to mention something that was personal, 98%, 99% of the agents won't discuss it with them, but they've now just given you permission to discuss it. That's your opportunity. They had a death in the family. They had this, they're divorced, whatever it is. We move past it. We're like, oh, I can't talk about that. I don't know them. No, they mentioned it because they want you to discuss it with them, because nobody else will. That's the gold. That's the gold, is the fact that you can get personal with someone when they mention something that personal, and don't ignore it. That is the best thing that can happen to you, because you're going to get to know them on a deeper level.
So when they're mentioning something personal, they're getting into their personal story, right? Is it okay to relate your own personal stories in the conversation?
Situational. And yes, I think so, because you want to be relatable, but they want to hear their own voice first, because that took courage for them to mention whatever that is.
Right.
I mean, Now, what I will do is right? I'm understanding who they are. They're now discussing, they're getting a divorce. They using this example, right? And now they're looking to downsize and it's going to be a tough journey. I stay there and I spend a lot of time there. And then the value might be, it sounds like you need someone to hold your hand and get you through the process quickly. You hit them with the value. When you hit them with the value, then you can tell your story. That is the cherry on top. But you don't talk about your pain when they talk about their pain, because then that will feel like there's an agenda there, and they need somewhere to go. They need somewhere to vent. That you're giving them that space to do it. It's not about Brian. It's about Jimmy in the moment, right? So we got to let them do their thing, and we got to stay curious. The moment we give our own story, that's actually getting in the way of actually getting deeper and more curious with more things that we can learn about timeline and everything else regarding that particular situation. Your story comes with your value. Your story comes with your value.
Do different things like, I understand how you feel, quote unquote. Do those lines get in the way?
I use feel, felt, found every day. I love feel, felt, found. That is a technique, not talk track. It's a technique that I use to build rapport. Right. So yeah, I understand how you feel, Dave. And most people have felt the same exact way. You're not alone. Other people have felt that way. But here's what they found. Sitting down, meeting with me, allowing me to really walk you through what the process looks like, so you're completely aware of what will happen when it happens and you won't be caught off guard, has allowed people to get ahead in this market. I do have some time at 2 o'clock. Are you free to meet next Monday? And then I just get right into it, right? But feel, felt, found is something that I'm always using, and I'm pivoting given on the situation. The thing is, my feel, felt, found again comes in my value after I've given them an opportunity, given them the microphone to discuss anything they want to when we get to pain. I do not deliver feel, felt, found in pain. I don't do it. I do it in my transition to my value.
So that's really cool. And that's why I asked you the question. I mean, one of the other things that I love that has really been successful, has helped a lot of people, is when you're having that conversation, you're in their story and stuff, and they're talking to you, like, let's say, just say a for sale by owner or an expired or whatever. And, I mean, look, let's face it. For sale by owners are selling on their own for two reasons. One, because most of the time it's commission. And two, they're a do-it-yourselfer, where they've got to do it themselves. I mean, I just renovated a house and I did a lot of the work myself. I feel great about it. Why didn't I hire somebody? Well, I do a lot more now than I used to, but I've always been a do-it-yourselfer. So when you start talking to people about it, one of the things that I've always loved and I've always been able to talk about with feel, felt, found is, has there ever been a time when? Yeah. And you throw that in there, and it's like you're talking to them about them. And that's where the active listening comes in. I mean, active listening, really simple explanation of it is for me, and I want you to go into your explanation, is ask a question, listen, repeat the answer, approve the answer, ask your next great question. The more you ask questions, the better you do. What is your definition of that?
I mean, yeah, the more questions. I know I'm winning if I'm talking less. Okay, and that's also telling me that I'm asking the questions that are resonating with people, because it's forcing them to think. So I will ask as many questions, and I don't stay surface level. For example, I will end every call I have. And by the way, we can get more information about someone at any point in the conversation, but I have rules when I end a prospecting call and appointments booked. I need to recap, but I need to recap the conversation to discuss what we just talked about. I ask 2 questions. What are you looking for in an agent? And most agents, this is just an example of what you're asking. Most agents just say, or they hear that someone's looking for good communication. Great, thank you so much. And they move on. What's preventing us from going, great, good communication is important to you? Is there anything specific about good communication that you're looking for? How do you like to communicate? Great. Okay, got that. Is there anything else that's important to you about a real estate agent or real estate experience? We don't go deep enough. We need to go deep enough. So I am a big believer that you go until they say stop, right? Right. And the other question that I also want to mention is you always want to use the information you're getting to label yourself as the way that they want you to show up for them. So When I book my appointment, I'm asking, what are you looking for in a real estate agent? And I'm getting all that list. Great. If you like what you hear when we meet, would there be any reason why we couldn't work with one another? That's a question I ask all the time. Future pacing that they're going to have that experience, and I'm labeling myself that way. And then I can use that. And the third thing I'm always doing is telling someone what happens next. Now, when you're in pain, you can't tell someone what happens next. That's, again, value.
Right, right.
So, but that needs to show up everywhere in the conversation, the back end of the conversation. They want to know what will happen next. I don't care if it's someone who's purchased homes before. I don't care if it's a first-time home buyer. It doesn't matter. Everyone wants to know what's going to happen next. And you, agents, me, Brian, needs to do a better job of saying, this is how I will show up. And when I do, because I know I will, because I'm consistent with it and I have a process, I'm going to be the no-brainer choice. I'm going to work for you. We're starting to work together now. Like, that's the other thing too, is I don't withhold information. If I know a house that's coming soon and someone's saying that's exactly what they want, I'm not saying, okay, let's wait till when we meet. And no, I'm going to give them what they want right there and then.
What do you mean by that?
Most of us hoard information. We don't give it to people.
So you're going to wait till the house comes out on the market? You're not going to wait. You're going to tell them right then and there what you know.
Well, my value is one of many. Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah.
Right.
You think we need to be the protector of all the information and this is my only value? Nah. They want someone they can trust. Why would they trust someone that's holding the information?
That's called evolution. And let me tell you what I mean by that. Back in the 90s, we were the keepers of the information. They had to come to us. They had to. We had the houses. We had the listings. We had all that shit, right? Now what do we got? Maybe we got some off-market stuff. Maybe we got this. And if we think that we're going to get over on them and think we know more than they do, there's no sense in holding back. I mean, if you've got information that others you think they don't have, you got to tell them. But that's where the value for you is because you knew about that, right? So the days of us having information, it's just like people think there's secrets in this business. There's no secrets in this business.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I'd love to say, Brian, what you're saying is innovative and evolutionary and everything else. It's evolutionary for you, and it's just a different angle that works. And I'm not saying you're not everything I say you are, fantastic, great, this evolutionary guy. But what I'm saying is there's no secrets in this business, and you've got a system and a process that really works. And it's a little different than mine, but I'll tell you what, I'd rather do your system than mine because I see how yours works. So I want to model what you're doing. And I think that's one of the problems that we have with scripts and dialogues and all that shit is that people want to use that and copy what other agents are doing that doesn't work to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing it does, it stops you from taking action because you're like, I have to memorize all this. What do I say if I get this situation? But if you were just natural, right? If you were just natural in the conversation, you were yourself and you just worked on asking better questions, I guarantee you'll have a better year. I guarantee it. The thing that I just learned, and I haven't invented any of this, and thank you for mentioning that with the evolution. I love that. I love that comment so much. Listen, I didn't invent any of this. I've taken the things that I've liked over time. I'm never going to reinvent the wheel. Okay. Yeah. I'm just better at putting it into practice. That's it. I'm good at like implementing and using it, but I'm not reinventing anything. I'm not making it Brian. Talk tracks. Talk tracks are scripts. There are many versions of it. That's what they are. Not living in overwhelm so I can focus on asking better questions, right? So I'm not reinventing anything. The things that have worked in front of me work. I'm not reinventing. This is all not crazy stuff. It's about how we implement and how we give ourselves an easier time implementing by taking the things that make sense to you to be the best version of yourself.
And this is how you build a business. This is how you build your mantra. This is how you build everything. I mean, quick story. I tell you, years ago, I've known John a long time, and I listened to him over and over and over again. And people would say, well, I'm not going to go see him. I've already heard him. I said, I don't care. I'm going to go see him over and over and over again. And I'm still doing it 15, 16 years later, right? And one of the things I said to John a long time ago, he says, you know, with trying to help agents and also help agents in my franchise, they say, I sound like you. I said, I don't want to do that. He says, Dave, do you think I got it? I made it up, right? It's the same thing with you, Brian. I mean, I love this stuff. And I mean, look, I'm working not from notes that we talked about the other day. I'm working from notes from listening to you speak several times over the last year of what you said and how you said it. So much so that I'm actually going to an event you're going to be at in February, because that's how much I love what you do, that it is evolutionary. And so if anybody thinks that they can't sound like you or they can't sound like me, that's bullshit. That's just an excuse. I want you to model Brian Danney. I want you to do everything he says. I want you to just do what he says, how he says it, whatever the words are. Find him. Go search the internet for him, social media, and just model what he's doing because it works. Sorry about that. I went out a little.
No, I appreciate that. I'm so excited to see you in Hollywood too. So it's going to be 3 fun days for sure.
It is. So really quickly, man, when we're doing all this work and we're doing everything else, we've got to take a step back sometimes and figure out, okay, you know, there's questions you have to ask yourself. And I know you do this. And one of the things that I do is, okay, I want to ask an agent, okay, they're frustrated or whatever. I'm going to ask them, what's working? Right? What's working? What's not working? What needs work? Right? What do you need to do to improve? How important are those questions and those step backs for you?
Yeah, no, I mean, this is something I analyze every day, and I am the furthest thing from perfect. Okay. And none of us are perfect, because there's always going to be things that we can fine tune and tweak. And what's working for me is my consistency. Always has. That is my superpower. It's being familiar with the things that I say that I need to do, right? Like the things that I tell myself with my non-negotiables, my daily sprints, staying consistent there, having my metrics, knowing my numbers, and where do I need to improve? You know, that's something I need to get better with letting go of the reins and allowing some people to help me with some leverage in moments. That's something that I continue to need to get better at. And I'm very fortunate where I've added some pieces that are allowing me to do that with leverage. But I just need to trust that process a little bit more. So it'll allow me to do more of what I enjoy and what I'm good at. And really continue to squeeze the lemon. I'm a big believer in squeezing lemons. So what I'm good at also is squeezing the lemon. And I'd love to just to mention this quickly. We all have a lemon and we squeeze it and we think we got all the lemonade out of it, right? And it's BS. There's more there. So what I am good at is focusing on the long-term game versus the short-term game. And that's where most agents get in trouble, is they play short-term. It's about the deal right now. It's about the deal that they can get right today. What about building that relationship and actually having an opportunity in a faucet that can actually turn into like a ridiculous amount of business? Play the long-term game. It might not reward you tomorrow, but if you squeeze a lemon and you focus on long-term, it's gold. It really is. So that's what's been working well and continue to work well this year for me.
Well, you can't get to the long-term stuff unless you do the short-term stuff too. And that's the action steps that build back from your business plan that you're building. Is that right?
Yes and no. I mean, I believe that people play short-term games because they want the win of today. Okay. And they don't think about how that can damage something that could actually happen later, right? They're telling agents, I heard this yesterday. Okay. I heard an agent really forcing a client's hand to close because they needed to get a sale before the end of the year to get to a certain number at the end of the year. And I'm like, but that's not in the best interest of that. That's not what they want. So it could be anything, but I'm saying, I guarantee you that pressure will that will be in the back of their minds to close early when that's not something that they wanted. Just even closing 2 weeks after January 1st. It's not something they wanted. So they'll remember that. And that's probably a referral platform that they just shut off or an opportunity there. So yeah, I mean, short-term game can get in trouble. Like when you run to those shiny objects, it could really, really damage you. So play the long-term game, do the right thing, and just stay curious and just continue to contribute.
Always play the long-term game, because when you get a deal, most new agents will focus on that deal and forget everything else. And luckily, if you've got someone there to push you, what are you doing for the next deal? Anyway, look, we're running up on time, man. I want to thank you so much for coming on today. It has truly been a pleasure for me to have you on. And, you know, there's a lot of things we do here, and the whole thing is to give back to our industry. And I know we've done a great job of doing that today. 2 things really quickly. 1, what can I do to help you grow your business?
I appreciate that. I'd love to be on here with you again. So let's do this again. I love this conversation. If you know anyone that's looking to just get sharper, by all means, please have them join you in Hollywood. Make sure you get that out there. We'll be there February 7th and 8th. It's going to be an amazing day with John Chepak, with Dan Beer, with myself, with Nikki. If you know Nikki Miller, she's going to be there as well. So there's going to be, and Cody Gibson's going to be there. So we're going to have some really great guests there. It's going to be an amazing event, and dive deeper into talk tracks and how to win and what to do with buyer agreements right now, right? Our value proposition matters more than ever. So that I'd love to see you and anyone else that can use that those 3 days. So
and the new version of the hat is on the way.
That color.
You got the other version. Hey, everybody, I want to thank you all for coming on today. Brian, just stay on one quick second if we go off. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you again next week with another great broadcast. Thank you so much. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy everything. See you next week.
Happy holidays.
Hey.